Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Know Your Members of Congress. No, not that one. More 2025 to 2026 state governments and officials. And in particular, we are looking at the state of South Carolina, one of the original colonies. Anyway, let's get into this. If I can find my mouse. They're known as the Palmetto State. And you can see where they sit in the U.S. right here. But anyway, the capital of South Carolina is Columbia, with its largest city being Charleston. Now, it is a state in the southeastern, South Atlantic, and Deep South regions. And it borders North Carolina to the north and northeast, the Atlantic Ocean to the southeast, and Georgia to the west and south across the Savannah River. Along with North Carolina, it makes up the Carolinas region of the East Coast. Yeah, at one point before the American Revolution, it was just called Carolina because North and South Carolina was together just Carolina. But I think about a year or so before the Revolution, it split into North Carolina and South Carolina. So while it is still one of the original 13, it's one of the youngest of the 13. It is the 11th smallest, but the 23rd most populous U.S. state, with around 5,118,425 people, according to the 2020 census. It has 46 counties, and the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson combined statistical area is the most populous combined metropolitan area in the state. So while Columbia is the capital, Charleston the most populated city, if you look at a metro area of Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, it's pretty much the most populated region. Because Charleston, the most populated city as of 2020, had 150,227 people. But that area, the three city area there, Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson, total have 1,590,636 people. Hell, you can almost cut that 1 million off and divide it into short of 200,000 each, and each area is still bigger than Charleston. So, yeah, it's got pockets of population here and there. But anyway, with that, let's go ahead and look at the state's constitution. They are running on a constitution that took effect in 1895. It has had 6 other constitutions: 1669 before independence, 1776, 1778, 1790, 1865, 1868. But it is on the 1895 Constitution which they now sit. Let's see, anything of interest? But if you know anything about South Carolina, another place that you might be familiar with, Myrtle Beach. A vacation spot that a lot of people often go to in South Carolina. But yeah, if I can get the mouse to work properly. Anyway, oh goodness, let's go ahead and look at the government of South Carolina. Let's see. Very red state, leans right. Very much to the right. Let's see. Starting with the executive branch. The governor is the chief executive and is elected to a 4-year term, serving up to 2 consecutive terms. And your current governor, Henry McMaster, who succeeded former Governor Nikki Haley after she became ambassador to the United Nations for the U.S. during Trump's first term. Lieutenant Governor is the second in command. Prior to 2018, governors and lieutenant governors were elected on separate tickets, but now they're kind of like running mates on the same ticket. They do have a cabinet, though many of the members are elected by the people. Attorney General, the Commissioner of Agriculture is an example. Superintendent of Education is another example. But just looking at the executive branch elected members, all of them are red, all Republican, except for the comptroller, who is a Democrat. So yeah. So like I said, very much leans right wing. All officers in the executive branch are elected at the same time as the governor. They allow for a possibility of multiple parties to be represented in the executive branch. The governor's cabinet also contains several appointed positions. In most cases, persons who fill cabinet level positions are recommended by the governor and appointed by the state. So while there are a couple positions that are elected by the people, they are also a lot that are appointed. But as we said, your governor, Henry McMaster, and he's just about fulfilled his full 2 elected terms because he took over for Haley and then he got 2 terms voted in himself. So, and he's just about to finish that second one up. Now let's look at the cabinet. You have Department of Administration, Marsha Adams. Department on Aging, Connie Munn. Department on Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, to be appointed interim director, it says. Department of Commerce, Harry M. Lightsey III. Department of Corrections, Joel Anderson. Department of Employment and Workforce, William Floyd. Department of Environmental Sciences, Myra Reese. Department of Health and Human Services, Eunice Medina. Department of Insurance, Michael Wise. Department of Juvenile Justice, Eden Hendrick. Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation, Emily H. Farr. Department of Motor Vehicles, Kevin A. Schwedo. Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, Dwayne N. Parrish. Department of Probation, Parole, and Pardon Services, Jake Gadsden Jr. Department of Public Health, Dr. Edward Simmer. Department of Public Safety, Robert G. Woods IV. Department of Revenue, W. Hartley Powell. Department of Social Services, Tony Catone, or Catone, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Department of Veterans Affairs, Todd B. McCaffrey. Office of the Inspector General, Brian D. Lamkin. Office of Resilience, Ben Duncan. The South Carolina Military Department, Robin B. Stillwell. And the State Law Enforcement Division, Mark A. Kill. I was trying to see if the military department's head had anything other than adjutant general, which is what they are for the state of South Carolina. Often, though, they have other titles if they serve in other regards as well. But, yeah. But that's a look at the cabinet. Next, we have Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette. Your military department, Robin B. Stillwell. I think MG is like Major General. If I'm correct, let me click on that so we can see. Yeah, Major General Robin B. Stillwell. South Carolina's Attorney General, Alan, would you stop? Alan Wilson. I need a new mouse. I so badly do. Department of Agriculture, Hugh Weathers. The Comptroller General for South Carolina, Brian J. Gaines. I think that was the one Democrat of the executive branch elected officials. The Secretary of State, Mark Hammond. The Treasurer of South Carolina, Curtis M. Loftus. And supposed to be the Superintendent of Education, but for some reason, I don't know why, we're having issues with how it reads it. Let me try to reload. Maybe we can get it to pop up properly. Nope. Something funky going on with the page. Anyway, with that said, let's look at the list of governors and governor of South Carolina. Again, Henry McMaster is your current governor. So they serve 4-year terms and can get 2 in a row. I don't know if they can come back after. Sometimes they can. I would probably say yes. No person shall be eligible to the office of governor who denies the existence of the supreme being. That kind of clashes with the federal constitution. Yet somehow it's still in place. No person shall be elected governor for more than 2 successive terms. However, there is no limit to the total number of terms, as it is not a lifetime limit. So yeah, it's saying they can serve 2 in a row, take off, 2 in a row, take off. The executive authority directs the cabinet agencies in appointing most of the members, with sharing them with the General Assembly, Commander-in-Chief for the South Carolina National Guard and the South Carolina State Guard. Commutes death sentences and life imprisonment, calls the General Assembly to extra sessions in extraordinary circumstances, adjourns the General Assembly, can exercise vetoes or a line item veto power, declares state emergencies and oversees relief in such events, declares schools and government offices closed during civil or weather emergencies, oversees all state departments, is the ex officio chair of the Board of Trustees for all state universities, the University of South Carolina, South Carolina State. I'm not sure if Clemson holds in that list or not. I know it's in South Carolina, but I don't know if it's considered among the same list. Budget proposal to the General Assembly every January, delivers the State of the State of address from time to time. usually done so in January, appoints U.S. senators in cases of vacancy to serve until the next election, appoints or suspends county sheriffs in cases of vacancy to serve until next election, removes elected school board officials for misfeasance, chronic unexcused absenteeism, conflicts of interest, misconduct in office, or persistent neglect of duty in office, or are deemed medically incompetent or medically incapacitated. Also a member of the State Fiscal Accountability Authority, which is alongside the Comptroller General, Treasurer, and chairs of the budget committees in the General Assembly. Line of succession: Governor, Lieutenant Governor, President of South Carolina State Senate, Speaker of the South Carolina House of Representatives. Then it goes to Secretary of State, Treasurer, Attorney General. Okay, so that's a look at the things the governor does. Now, let's go ahead and look at the list of governors. The first governor for the state, this is when the country declares independence, the first state governor is John Rutledge. I think he was in the Constitutional Convention, all this. So yeah, he's pretty important as a founding father. Politician, jurist, was one of the original associate justices for the United States Supreme Court and the second Chief Justice of the United States. Additionally, he served as the first president of South Carolina and later its first governor. But yeah, then we have Rawlins Lowndes. Now, as we can see here, there were 30 positions before. Those are all before it was a state, like I said, because we start with independence with Rutledge. After Rutledge, you have Rawlins Lowndes, lawyer, planner, politician, elected by South Carolina's legislature, although he opposed independence from Britain. There was a number of people like that who didn't want to be independent. They still wanted certain rights, but, you know, he kind of had to end up joining the cause for independence because, of course, Britain was being aggressive in how they treated the colonies. After Lowndes, we get Rutledge back. And after his second term there as governor, we get John Matthews, another founding father, a lawyer from Charleston, delegate to the Continental Congress, endorsed the Articles of Confederation on behalf of South Carolina, and governor of South Carolina. And then we get Benjamin Garrard, lawyer, patriot, fourth governor of the state. Then we get William Moultrie, Slave owning planner, politician, general during the Revolutionary War. When he was a colonel leading the state militia, prevented the British from taking Charleston, and Fort Moultrie was named in his honor. Then we have Thomas Pinckney, another big name in American politics. Statesman, diplomat, military officer in both the American Revolution and War of 1812. Eventually attaining the rank of Major General. Was governor of South Carolina and the U.S. minister to Great Britain. So he served as the communications individual between the U.S. and Britain. Then we get Charles Pinckney, another big name. Founding father, planner, politician, signer of the Constitution, governor of South Carolina, and a U.S. senator. Then we get Moultrie again. We already talked about him. Well, Arnoldus Vanderhorst, military officer, planner, general in the South Carolina militia during the American Revolution. And yeah. Then we get Charles Pinckney again. And then Edward Rutledge, founding father, politician, signed the Continental Association, and the youngest signatory of the Declaration of Independence, and governor of South Carolina. I wonder if he was any kin to John Rutledge. Then we get John Drayton, governor of South Carolina, United States District Judge. James Churchill Richardson, Governor Paul Hamilton, Governor, Secretary of the Navy. Charles Pinckney for the third time. Then we get John Drayton. Get him again. Henry Middleton. Planner, political leader, governor of South Carolina, and South Carolina representative in Congress. Then we get Joseph Alston, Governor David Rogerson Williams, representative in Congress and governor Andrew Pickens, soldier, politician, governor John Geddes, governor Thomas Bennett Jr., businessman, banker, politician, governor of South Carolina. Also in the state General Assembly, where he also was Speaker of the House for 4 years. Then we get John Lyde Wilson, Richard Irvine Manning, John Taylor, Stephen Decatur Miller, Governor of South Carolina, U.S. Representative from South Carolina, and Senator from South Carolina. James Hamilton Jr. was a representative of South Carolina in Congress, a governor of South Carolina. Robert Y. Hayne, George McDuffie, that name sounds familiar. Governor of South Carolina, member of the U.S. Senate for South Carolina. He's connected to Jackson. Pierce Mason Butler, Patrick Noble, Barnabas Kellett Hennigan, John Peter Richardson II, James H. Hammond, William Aiken Jr., David Johnson, Whitemarsh Benjamin Seabrook, John Hugh Means, John Lawrence Manning, James Hopkins Adams, Robert Francis Withers Austin, William Henry Gist, Governor of South Carolina, signer of the Ordinance of Succession, saying that South Carolina should succeed before the start of the damn it, I forgot, Civil War. I kept wanting to say revolutionary. That's not the right war. Francis Wilkinson Pickens, Millage Luke Bonham, Andrew Gordon McGrath. Then there's a period of a couple of days where there is no governor because the previous one is arrested and removed because, we hit the end of the Civil War and he has to pay the price. So, but finally we get Benjamin Franklin Perry, then James Lawrence Orr, Robert Kingston Scott, Franklin J. Moses Jr., Daniel Henry Chamberlain, Wade Hampton III. So we're starting to see some Republicans in there. William Dunlap Simpson, Thomas Bothwell Jeter, Johnson Haygood, Hugh Smith Thompson, John Calhoun Shepard. We go back to Democrat. So you notice the three governors that are Republican are during Reconstruction, when African Americans actually have the capability to vote. Things are more fair. Then when Reconstruction ends, you notice how it immediately goes back to Democrat. Hugh Smith Thompson, John Calhoun Shepard, John Peter Richardson III, Benjamin Tillman, John Gary Evans, William Hasselden Ellerby, Miles Benjamin McSweeney brings us into the 1900s, Duncan Clinch Hayward, Martin Frederick Ansel, Co. L. Blease, Charles Aurelius Smith, Richard Irvine Manning III, Robert Archer Cooper, Wilson Godfrey Harvey, Thomas Gordon MacLeod, John Gardner Richards Jr., Ibra Charles Blackwood, Olin D. Johnston, Burnett R. Maybank, Joseph Emily Harley. Then there's a period of about 3 days that there is no governor. And then we get Richard Manning Jeffries, Olin D. Johnston again, Ransom Hudson Williams, Strom Thurmond. Yeah, he would end up in the Senate, and for a while would be the longest serving senator. James F. Burns, George Bell Timmerman Jr., Fritz Hollings, Donald S. Russell, Robert Evander McNair, John C. West, James B. Edwards. Look how far it went with Democrats. We get a Republican, finally, for the first time since Reconstruction. Back to Democrat with Richard Riley, and then Republicans, Carroll A. Campbell Jr., David Beasley, and into the 2000s we get Jim Hodges as a Democrat. Then it's all Republicans. Mark Sanford, Nikki Haley, Henry McMaster. It shows you how much has changed over the last 25 years. Because even into the 90s, throughout the 90s, it was a mix. 80s and 90s. So there is, you could see where the sea change begins and everything, showing how things differ. But that's a look at the history of governors for South Carolina. Now, let's look at the South Carolina General Assembly, the legislature. Double-chambered Senate and House of Representatives. You have a Senate President and a House Speaker. Your current Senate President, Thomas Alexander, and the current House Speaker, Murrell Smith. Both Republican. Altogether, there are 170 seats, 46 senators, and 124 representatives. Last episode, we looked at Rhode Island. This episode, it's tilted not quite as heavy, but still much more right-leaning. And yeah, we have 34 Republicans to 12 Democrats in the House. Again, you can see it's very right-leaning. 68 Republicans to 36 Democrats. 88 Republicans to 36. Anyway. Since 1960, prior to 1964, each county doubled as a legislative district. With each county electing one senator and one representative. It has, but in 1964, the case Reynolds v. Sims caused district lines to cross county lines, causing legislators to be on multiple county councils. And in 1975, county councils that were independent of the General Assembly were created, but the General Assembly still retains considerable authority over local government. So the General Assembly actually devotes considerable time to local matters, not just state level. The representatives, the lower house, is elected every 2 years, and the Senate every 4, with half one 2-year period and the other 2-year period. So no term limits, and the assembly meets in joint sessions, both houses convening at the same time so that judges can be elected. They do, of course, pass laws, being the legislature, and they can override a veto with a 2/3 majority. To be a senator, you must be qualified to vote, must be a resident of the district that you seek to represent, at least 25 years of age, and not been convicted or pled guilty to a felony or voter fraud. If it's under 15 years since that time has been served. To be a representative, pretty much the same, except you can be 21 instead of 25. Yeah, you can see post Civil War, the Reconstruction era, how Republicans lead, then Democrats for a long time, occasional Republican here or there. Now it's turned into the modern day Republican Party. Like I said, there is a difference between the Republican Party of the Civil War, post-Civil War era, and the modern Republican Party. Very much a difference. But with that, let's look at the courts. We got the South Carolina Supreme Court at the top, highest court, with a justice for Chief Justice and 4 associate justices. Your current justices, they don't say which one is Chief Justice, but the justices are John W. Kitteridge, John Cannon Few, George C. James, D. Garrison Hill, and Letitia H. Burden. The court does have original and appellate jurisdiction, so it has the exclusive appellate jurisdiction for all state cases regarding death penalty, state utility rates, judgments involving public bonded indebtedness, and elections, and orders limiting state grand juries and relating to abortions by minors. Original jurisdiction pertains to the issuance writs, including mandamus, certiorari, and very extraordinary bills. So it does serve as the highest appellate court, but does have some original jurisdiction issues. That it deals with. Below the Supreme Court, we have the South Carolina Court of Appeals, Intermediate Appellate Court, most appeals from the circuit courts and family courts of South Carolina that do not fall within the 7 classes of cases which the Supreme Court exercises exclusive jurisdiction of. We done mentioned them. Your current judges for the Court of Appeals, your Chief Judge, H. Bruce Williams, with associates, Paula H. Thomas, Aphrodite K. Kondoros, John D. Gethers, Stephanie McDonald, Blake A. Hewitt, Jerry D. Vinson Jr., Matthew P. Turner, and Christy F. Curtis. So that's that. And finally, we get to look at the circuit courts. I didn't have a link for family courts, but they're below circuit courts. Circuit court is the state court of general jurisdiction that's split into 2 divisions: the civil division, or court of common pleas, and a criminal division, the court of general sessions. It is the state trial court of general jurisdiction, and a superior court having appellate jurisdiction over appeals from lower probate court, magistrate court, and municipal courts. The 46 counties of South Carolina are divided into 16 judicial circuits, and there is at least 1 resident circuit judge who maintains office in his or her home county within the circuit, and there are currently 49 circuit judges who serve the 16 courts on a rotating basis. So, yeah. There is a business court program that's statewide that's within the circuit courts. And citizens of each circuit elect a circuit solicitor, who is a state prosecutor equivalent to the district attorney in many other states, but serves for their circuit. So the circuit attorney, prosecutor, defendant, well, circuit prosecutor, they don't really defend anybody, but that will be the end of this episode. Anyway, as always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.